to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the new CBA. I'll have a few videos up today. Seems like there may be some big news dropping in the NFL. I'm already hearing rumors with Ryan Tannehill. If that goes down, I'll probably have a video discussing that. As well as any updates with the NFL free agency and the NFL draft that could potentially be pushed back. But this video is going to be about the new collective bargaining agreement. So now we know in 2021, unless this virus extends for 2 years, the NFL will definitely be playing football. That was something that we were a little bit worried about, being that the CBA was coming up and the players and owners didn't seem to be anywhere near agreeing on a contract. They've been working on this now for a few years. The owners initially wanted 18 games. In the end, they got 17. However, I do think the players got some things as well. I think it was a pretty fair deal for both sides. The players will see a dramatic increase in their salaries. When you hear the percentage, you may say, well, that doesn't sound like a lot, but I will break it down for you guys and explain the best I can. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a pretty good deal for both sides. We don't know if we're going to have free agency starting tomorrow. We'll have to wait and see with that. And I'm sure we'll get an update with that later today. The deadline for the franchise tag, from what I understand now, is 4 p.m. tomorrow. In addition to that, you can no longer do both a franchise tag and a transition tag. They said, this year there was an outlier that you could. That is no longer the case. So a team like the Dallas Cowboys can no longer tag both Dak and Amari Cooper, just for an example, or the Titans, with Tannehill and Henry. That cannot take place. But I wanted to talk about some of the major changes going into the 2021 season and even the 2020 season, if and when we play it. But let's jump into some of the new rules with the NFL, and I'll explain and give my opinion on all of them. These are some of the new rules, and then I'll pull up a few more. The NFL will expand to a 17-game season beginning in 2021 at the earliest, and that, of course, was one of the biggest changes that we heard about about a month ago, 2 months ago when it leaked. And this is kind of a compromise. Like I said, the owners wanted 18. The players probably still wanted 16. They ended up getting 17. The players will be compensated for it with the increase in salary. However, like I've said, this is a league that's trying to cut down on concussions. By adding a game, that's certainly not going to help it. But obviously more revenue for the league. Now, the interesting part with this, obviously this doesn't happen until 2021. There's going to be an odd number of home games or road games unless you do something about that, right? Because it's an odd schedule. So some teams would have 9 home games. Some teams would have 8. That doesn't seem to be very balanced and fair. So what I could see the league doing, especially being, and maybe this came out, but I didn't see anything about it, especially being that we're trying to expand and make more money. The league is trying to expand. They've played a lot of games over in London. They've played some games over in Mexico. I could see there being a total of 16 games in London and Mexico combined, so each team has one neutral game a year. I could see that being the case. That, to me, seems like the most fair method, and it would, add revenue outside of the States and add popularity to the sport. So I could see that being the case. That's just a thought I had. The next rule, the preseason will be reduced to 3 games beginning 2021 at the earliest, so you still have 20 total games. It used to be 4 preseason, 16 regular season. Now it's 3 preseason, 17 regular season. I mean, I like that. I don't like preseason games to begin with. It'll be interesting to see how they, play their starters. Usually you don't play your starters the last preseason game, so now you're only going to have 2 games to get your starters into shape. We'll have to wait and see how the teams go about doing that. But again, that will not happen until 2021. The one rule that we're going to get into in a second, the playoff rule, will be instituted, I believe, in 2020. There will be a major playoff overhaul, including 7 teams per conference with only 1 team receiving a bye. And like I said, I'm almost positive that starts in 2020. I've talked about that in the past as well in one of my previous videos. I actually like that. It puts more emphasis on having the best record, which I'm never against. Now, I don't like watering down the playoffs. You're obviously going to get 2 extra teams. This will create 2 more games on Wild Card Weekend. It used to be 2 games on Wild Card Weekend in each conference. Now you'll have 3, being that there will be 6 teams playing in the Wild Card round as opposed to 4 in each conference. You then will have 3 winners plus the bye team. You'll have 4 teams in the second round. So the only additional playoff games are the 1 extra wild card game in the AFC and the 1 extra wild card game in the NFC. And of course, it will shake up the playoffs a bit. You'll probably have more teams that go 8-8 that sneak into the playoffs, things like that. And it will make it more exciting for most fan bases around the league. You will have an opportunity to make the playoffs even if you have a mediocre football team, which opens up the door for a team like the New York Giants, perhaps, to try to sneak into the playoffs. So maybe it definitely gives us a better shot next year. Next thing we're going to talk about, NFL teams will be permitted to use only one tag, which I talked about earlier. I think for this year, originally, it was ruled that you could use both, but now that is not the case. The NFL will raise the minimum salaries and improve player benefits. So the minimum salary in the NFL now, I'm not 100% sure what it is, but it's probably right around $700,000. I think that's what Cody Core got, but I could be wrong. Could be less than that, but that will be raised. So that's nice to hear that the the guys fighting for roster spots will be compensated for that, and maybe it'll even out the paying scale. I doubt it, though. But good to hear that they will be getting a bit of a raise, which only makes sense when you're increasing the cap as dramatically as they're going to. The next rule, the NFL will overhaul their drug discipline policy beginning in 2020 with a failed test for marijuana no longer leading to a suspension. And this is a huge rule, right? I mean, you think about a lot of players who have ruined their careers over things like marijuana. Ricky Williams comes to mind. Justin Blackmon might have been alcohol or marijuana. I can't remember. But there's been a number of players. And, obviously we know a lot of people do smoke marijuana. I do not, but a lot of people do. And I think it's only a matter of time before it will be legalized. But this is definitely very player-friendly. Tons of players lost millions of dollars due to that narcotic. So I'm sure the players were happy about this. This was definitely a win for the players along with the increased salary cap. Next up, post-June 1st, cuts will still be permitted. And that in the a lot of people have talked about that with Nate Solder. If the Giants were to cut Nate Solder, for example, after June 1st, and there's a number of players, this is just from a Giants perspective, it would only, I think, be about a $6 or $6.5 million hit as opposed to 13. But obviously, most of your free agents are gone by then, so that is still allowed. Active game day rosters will increase from 46 to 48 with 8 offensive linemen, while the full NFL roster size will increase from 53 to 55. So you're getting 2 additional players on your roster. The reason being, and you're going to get 2 on the practice squad, we'll get to in a second. But the reason being, obviously, is the extra game. More injuries, you need more depth on your roster. So it creates more jobs in the league. Players that are playing in the XFL, for example, may get an opportunity to play in the NFL. The size of a team's practice squad will increase from 12 to 14 players, same reason, and it will not happen until 2022. That's it. We'll increase to 12 players in 2020. I'm sorry, and 14 players in 2022. Okay, I believe it was 11 if I'm not mistaken. So it'll be a 1-player increase this year, and by 2022 it will be a 3-player increase over last year's practice squad. And then finally, NFL teams can now designate 3 players to return from injured reserve. So those are some of the major changes. A couple other things I wanted to bring up for you guys. One was this. This is the increase in the salary cap. And like I said, when you read the percentages, you might say to yourself, well, that doesn't sound like a lot. But when you're talking, billions of dollars, it is. This came out by Tom Pelissero. He says, as we've been stating, players' share of revenue spikes from 47% to 48% starting in 2021, and the salary cap will spike accordingly. And I saw a lot of people on Twitter making fun of the word spike, but a 1% increase is a lot. That is going to be it's not as high as originally predicted by some people. It will not be a 20% increase. It will be approximately a 15%, which is what is being said right now. That's still more than double what it is normally. So the salary cap should jump from right around 200. It's actually 198.2 if we're being exact. That came out as well. But it will jump from right around 200 to approximately $230 million next year. And obviously the players will be paid accordingly. Expect about a 15% raise per position in the market. So there's the big news pertaining to the salary cap. And then this is what I'm sure I'll touch on in a video later today if and when news comes out. It may even come out by the time I post this video. Who knows? As for the start of the league year and free agency still set to begin on Wednesday, NFL officials are currently discussing this with the union now. It's not the NFL's unilateral decision. Clarity coming soon. So they're going to talk it out. Obviously, Sean Payton came out yesterday, was very outspoken about the fact that he thinks it will be pushed back. I've also heard rumors. Nothing is concrete. Nothing is set in stone. I want to reiterate that the draft could be pushed back to mid-May. If that were the case, I would expect free agency to possibly be pushed back about a month, maybe 3 weeks or so. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully we get some news tomorrow. If not, well, we're going to have to continue to sit and wait and talk football and, talk about some of the rumors. But those were some of the major changes pertaining to the NFL salary cap and the CBA. And obviously there's a lot of good news that comes out from this. Now there's clarity. We could all sit back, relax. We know there will be football in 2021. And I think it's as fair of a deal as the players could have gotten. I don't think they could have gotten much more. They had to cave with the extra schedule. They got the provision with the marijuana, which I think is a big deal to a lot of players in the NFL. You're losing a lot of money when you get popped for that. Obviously, the significant increase in salary cap and the extra players on the roster. So I think it was a somewhat friendly player deal in the end. Of course, the owners are always going to make out. They control the league. But it was about as fair of a deal if you're a player, I think, that you could have hoped for. And I think that's why the players agreed to sign with it. This was a long battle, but I'm glad it's finally come to a conclusion, and we'll have football going forward. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.